My shirt says, I love books. I am a bookworm. I'm a manga bookworm. Um, so, as you probably guessed by the title, this is going to be me talking about Lumiere Silvermillion Clover, who is the first Wizard King of the Clover Kingdom and the first kind of leader of the Magic Knights, or what would become the Magic Knights. So the reason I'm doing this is because a couple of weeks ago I did the video where I did the review of the Black Clover movie Sword of the Wizard King, which introduced us to 4 other Wizard Kings on top of the 2 that we already knew about, Lumiere and Julius. And one of the things that I kind of decided that I wanted to do was I wanted to do a series where I talked about, or videos where I talked about the other 4 Wizard Kings that we were introduced to. Princia, Edward, Jester, and Conrad, where I wanted to talk about each of them because there's a lot of additional information that was given in an additional side volume that talks a lot about their different backstories. And I wanted to do videos about them, and I am still planning on that. But what I also decided is like, well, if I'm going to do videos about those 4, I might as well just do a video about Lumiere as well, and then one about Julius. And I kind of figured, since for the One Piece videos, I am doing different videos where I talk about the different rulers and leaders in One Piece. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to do these every single week, but these ones for a little while might be kind of like placeholder videos in regards to like weeks where there is no One Piece video, or where there's no One Piece chapter. So I'll do one of these instead. And because I don't think there's going to be much information added on to some of these in regards to like some of the ones that are introduced to us. If I need to record them a little bit ahead of time, that's not a big deal, depending on stuff, because this one is going up where the Friday after this video, or the Friday this video goes up, I'm actually going to be going on vacation with my dad and my nieces and nephew, kind of like what we did a year or so ago where we went across Nebraska. Although we're not going across Nebraska, and it's not nearly as long. We're actually going to go and visit some of our family down in Kansas City. My dad's younger sister. Going to go see her and her family and spend a couple of days down there. Probably not really going to get a whole lot of any videos out of that. So, and it just gives me time to relax with them and everything. And the kids haven't gotten to spend much time in Kansas City, so it gives them a bit of a chance to do that and such. So we get to have fun that way. So that's why this video is going to be about Lumiere. And these ones, as I said, they'll kind of go up, on weeks where there is no One Piece chapter for me to talk about, or if I don't have something else from One Piece that I want to talk about, or if I don't have a review of another movie that'll be coming out. I probably have mentioned this already. I do plan on going to see the Barbie movie when it's already out now, but when I go and see it, the day or so after that, I will be doing a video about, doing a video review of the movie and then putting that up. Don't know exactly when that's going to be yet, because it's going to be me, my mom, my 2 nieces, so that's 4 of us. My sister didn't really want to go. She'll probably see it once it goes to like streaming services. Possibly one of my niece's friends, and possibly the other niece's friend, give or take. So at the at the least there'll be 4 of us. At the most there might be 6 to 7 of us. I asked my dad if he wanted to go. He wasn't all that interested, which is fine. But then I'll be doing the review of the Barbie movie at whatever point in time that happens. So going into it, talking about Lumiere Silvermillion Clover. As I stated, he's the first Wizard King, or kind of the originator of that position. He's not actually called that during his lifetime. He's kind of given the name posthumously, as given the storybook that we see throughout the course of the first part of the series. There's where, it's like an illustration of a storybook that is, I believe that has Sister Lily telling Asta and Yuno and the other kids at the orphanage about the history of the Wizard King, that he was, this mighty wizard, and one day there was this evil demonic demon that, this evil demonic creature that attacked the kingdom, and he defeated it, and now the giant skull for said demon, along with a statue of him, sits right by Hodge Village. So, Austin, get to wake up almost every day for, the first 16 years of their life and see the giant statue there, or what everybody thinks is a statue. Throughout the course of the series, and mostly through different flashbacks that we get later on with Secker, with Nero, we get a much more full picture painted of him. Because in the beginning, he's just kind of this legendary hero type figure that we really don't know that much about. He fought this demon and defeated it and saved the kingdom 500 years ago, and now we've had 26 other people that have held the post of Wizard King. And of course, as it is also stated, the Wizard King is separate from the actual king because the actual current king is an idiot. So his name is Lumiere. His kind of Japanese name, or the way that it's done, is like Lemuel, but it's Lumiere in the English official translation. And of course, I'm like, so you mean like the candelabra from, Beauty and the Beast is, of course, the thing that pops into my head with my Disney brain. Nothing against Lumiere. I love him. And at the time of death, Lumiere is 25 years old when he dies. In regards to his family, which of course I'll go into a little bit more later on, he has a sister whose name is Tetia. And she's kind of the only family of his that we know about, up until she gets married and is pregnant. And that leads into things. So Lumiere's personality, he's a very eccentric young man, incredibly curious about all different types of magic. So very similar to like Julius, and even very similar to Asta, who's quite interested in lots of different types of magic and finding out how people's powers work and everything like that. Lumiere is very, he doesn't really possess prejudice or anything towards commoners or the elves or anything like that. Unlike a lot of the other noble and royal humans that are around in the Clover Kingdom at the time. We see this in the fact that he has Secker become his assistant, even though she is of somewhat lower birth, or she doesn't have exceedingly strong magic powers as far as anyone can tell. But he still thinks that she has a lot of usefulness and has a lot of ideas and everything. And so he also loves to create all of these different magical items and everything like that to help benefit everyone. We see this in the weird time capsule type thing that he develops later on that ends up helping Julius. And then, of course, we see it in the sword that I'll bring up. That is the whole crux of the Sword of the Wizard King movie. But he does not hold prejudice against people, which is one of the good things about him, as opposed to probably some of the other Wizard Kings that have held the post. That probably weren't all that good of people to some of the other people that served underneath them. And while the Magic Knights are connected to the Wizard King in current day, I don't think the Magic Knights really existed back in Lumiere's day when he was, alive. And as I stated, he was more awarded the title of Wizard King posthumously, kind of as a way to cover up what the kingdom actually did to the elves. He's awarded that posthumously. So in regards to his biography, his history, he is kind of the story that we get, or kind of the backstory that we get, is that he is this highborn royal. I don't think he's actually the prince of the kingdom or anything like that. He's just this highborn royal. And he also has a sister whose name is Tetia, is I think a few years younger than him. And at one point in time, one day they're out and about, and Tetia ends up getting caught in this magical tornado and ends up getting pulled away, and Lumiere goes after her, and Tetia ends up getting saved by Licht, who is a member of the elf tribe. Who are pretty much considered outsiders within the kingdom at this point in time. Most of the nobles and royals and the people within the Clover Kingdom at the time don't want anything to do with the elves. So they just kind of stick to themselves. And Licht and Lumiere actually find out that they both possess 4-leaf grimoires. And Lumiere has light magic, which is a play on his name because Lumiere in French is light. I think it's also stated that Licht has light magic as well, and such. But Lumiere kind of gets to watch, and he befriends the elves, and he watches as his sister and Licht fall in love with each other, and he is perfectly fine with that. And like they become friends, and Lumiere becomes friends with the elves and spends a lot of time in the village and everything like that. Him and Tetia keep sneaking off to go and find to go and see the elves and everything like that, because the rest of the people in the court probably wouldn't approve of it. They even have to sneak away from Secker, but eventually she finds out as well. And so we kind of have this set up. During this time frame is when, or somewhere in this time frame is when he ends up meeting Secker Swallowtail, who of course ends up becoming his assistant. They spend a large amount of time together. He thinks that she's amazing because of her sealing magic and how many different types of applications it can have, not just like opening and locking doors and stuff like that, but we see her learn how to use her magic more while dealing with him, or while spending time with Lumiere. We see her then be able to apply those skills later on. Like currently in the manga, there is a fight going on where the Black Bulls were fighting against psychotic judge, him, and Secker kept like sealing different wounds and stuff like that to protect them. So stuff she's doing now is based off of stuff she learned how to do or had posited that could be done with her power much earlier on by Lumiere. And so we see a lot of that. We see them actually build up this very good friendship. And then as I said, he develops different things. He develops the time capsule type thing, and he develops the according to the movie at the very least, he develops the Imperial Sword Estokia. Can't pronounce the damn thing's name, but he develops the sword, and it ends up being passed down through all the different Wizard Kings all the way up until Conrad, which I'll go a lot more into in Conrad's video, but it supposedly keeps a tiny piece of each of the different Wizard Kings inside of it to hold a piece of their power to then carry on to the next generations, probably also to help pass on wisdom and things like that as well. But Lumiere developed that. However, one of the things that happens is, of course, Tetia and Licht are in love, and they are, Tetia is pregnant, and they are ready to get married, and there's this whole big celebration going on in the elves, for the elf tribe and everything. And Lumiere had even gone and promised them that he would do everything in his power to try to get it that they would be more accepted in the kingdom and everything along those lines, get them more land, better, quality of different places to live and things like that, and have them be more accepted. And that is his intention. And he fully intends to, make this true, because like his sister is marrying into the tribe, and him and Licht are best friends and everything. So he has full intention of trying to make this promise a reality. Unfortunately, during the same time frame is when Zagreed, the psycho devil, has been whispering in the ears of the different royals of the Clover Kingdom, and has told them that, if you slaughter the elves, you will be able to gain their power. So that's where the whole problem of the massacre of the elf tribe comes into play. Zagreed has been whispering into the royals' ears enough that they have agreed to this, or that they have decided that this is a good idea to gain more power and everything. Also, just insert racism in here as well, against the elves. And one of the things that ends up happening is, of course, they end up tricking Lumiere to come into the castle, or come to the to the castle on the day of the wedding. And they intend to trap him in the castle at the time, so that way he cannot go and help the elves. Via Secker's help, he is able to escape, and then him and Secker then make their way to where the elf village is. Unfortunately, they are too late in arriving to be able to prevent the massacre from happening. The royals have already released this giant, monstrous attack that has then just devastated the entire village. and pretty much everyone is dead. Even Tetia has, you know, become exceedingly wounded and seems to be dying or is dead in Licht's arms. And via having Zagreed whisper into Licht's ear, he actually ends up, well, to prevent Zagreed from taking over his body, Licht turns himself into this giant monster and asks Lumiere to kill him, because then Zagreed cannot take over the body. And in this process, there's, this is where, you know, during this fight is when, you know, the whole legend of the, you know, Wizard King is born. You know, Lumiere, he does what his friends wish. He accepts his friend's last wish, or what he assumes is his last wish at that point in time, and he, you know, destroys the monster. He does slay it, and in the process, he ends up using so much of his magic to absorb, his power to absorb a lot of the attack to prevent it from like hurting other people in the realm. The normal citizens of the realm are still innocent, whereas it is like the royals and the nobles at that point in time, or at least a lot of them, that are the main, you know, proprietors of this attack, which of course later on leads down to where we have the Silva clan and the Vermilion clan and the, you know, all of them, and the, you know, so many of the other different royal families. You know, that's one of the reasons why they have power, or at least that's one of the thought reasons for why they have power. During this process, you know, Lumiere ends up actually getting very injured, and because he knows that he's going to have to eventually he will be needed again to try to defeat Zagreed eventually, because he figures out what Zagreed is doing. And during this time frame, during the battle, Seker locks Zagreed away using part of her magic, and then to help with stuff, she ends up taking these jewels that I believe are connected to the elf tribe in the first place. She takes them along with Lumiere, and she kind of does a sealing spell that results in parts of Lumiere being put into the different crystals, or at least that's what I think. It sets up like a lock and key system where she, you know, where then all of those gemstones get, you know, scattered around, you know, the kingdom. Some in the hands of different people, some just lost to time, whatever the case may be. But Seker then spends, you know, she is cursed to then become one of the little, you know, anti-birds, little anti-magic birds. She becomes one of them and spends the next 500 years watching over the kingdom. And of course, eventually, you know, finds Asta, finds him to be somewhat similar to the original Wizard King, and stays with him, and eventually helps gather up all of the different stones and all of that, along with, you know, watching as the elves and everything from the Eye of the Midnight Sun, you know, gather up their power and try to gather up the stones as well, and all of that. And, you know, during over this course of the last 500 years, the story of the Wizard King has been passed down, and so many other different individuals have held the post of Wizard King. Others who will be talked about later on in the series. And if we end up getting introduced to other Wizard Kings throughout the course of the rest of the anime, or the rest of the, you know, manga, I'm kind of doubting it at this point in time, considering where the current battles are going. But if we end up getting introduced to any more of them, then I might do some videos about them, depending on what we get. But I do at least plan on doing them about this one and then the other 5 that we are aware of so far. And what ends up happening is, you know, during the battle with the Eye of the Midnight Sun, during this last fight where, you know, Asta and the rest of them are off fighting against them, and Seker goes, wakes up Finral, and like, okay, you're coming with me. And he, you know, they go to the giant skull with the statue on top of it. She tells him, put the different crystals into the different spots. And Finral, because he's being told what to do by a bird, does so. Puts all the different correct crystals into the correct magical spots on the belt, on the statue itself. And that releases the type of spell that, you know, Seker had set up, all those between Seker and Lumiere that had been set up, you know, 500 years ago, and Lumiere is awakened. And he has his power, but he is also still kind of part statue, part human. And So he's still affected by physical attacks, but he's not really going to bleed. And his, he doesn't really have like major organs or anything like that. And, then at that point in time, Sekker's, body is released. She's no longer a bird anymore. She's not trapped in the body of a bird anymore. And she's able to turn back into her true form, plus some horns. And, that's when they then are like, she's just so happy to see Lumiere again, because she's, the last 500 years, he's like, thank you for waiting the last 500 years. I don't remember if they actually hug or not, but I would like it if they did. Because, for Sekker, from her point of view, yes, she spent the last 500 years watching this kingdom as it grew, as the story of the Wizard King was told and everything. And yes, she sees similarities between Asta and, between Asta and Julius and, Lumiere. She sees similarities there and stuff, but she's also spent the last 500 years alone for the most part, because it's not like she could really talk to anyone, and stuff. And yeah, well, she's been observing the kingdom. That's not the same as being able to actually be a part of the kingdom and being able to interact with people. And she's just so happy to see Lumiere. And for Lumiere, I don't know if he states that it does feel like it's been 500 years, or if it's more like, oh, that wasn't very long on my end, but I know how long it was for you. I thank you for waiting. Like, we don't know how conscious Lumiere was during this time frame. Was he conscious enough, like in Dr. Stone, where Senku was counting for, 3,000 some years? Or was it different than that? Was it like, we don't know the exact setup for that. I don't think we ever get that exact information. Or if it is listed anywhere, I apologize for not knowing it. And what ends up happening is, at that point in time, then it's like, okay, well, now we got to go fight the elves and help them, because we got to go take care of what the real problem is, which is actually going to be the evil devil thing that's going to pop up soon. So they head off, and they make their way to the flying shadow palace, where Lumiere is reunited with what is the kind of somewhat reincarnation of Licht's soul. Sekker then unseals Licht's soul, and he is fully awakened to his memories, and he remembers Lumiere and has his personality back finally. And Lumiere and Licht are just so happy to see each other. But they're also like, okay, we have to fight. We have to take down Zagreed and finish him off, finish what we started 500 years ago. And from there, we get this great fight where eventually we have Asta and Yuno and Patri also being a part of this battle as well. And, eventually, with everybody working together and Yami and all of that, they are eventually able to actually defeat Zagreed. And of course, now all the elves are unpossessed and they head back to the afterlife and, insert all of that stuff. And it is revealed that, during all of this time frame, it is revealed that he has actually been the baby that was Tetia, and this is known to the people who are the viewers and everything, but like that he was the baby that would have been born from Tetia and Licht, that he is that baby's soul reincarnated. And that's why he is not fully possessed, because he's just always been that way. The baby didn't have any memories for him to take over. So that's why Yuno was able to still stay in control, even though he was technically possessed. And so that technically does make him the reincarnation of Lumiere's nephew. So there's that. There's that whole thing. And we get, this whole big battle that happens, and it's a great battle to watch, and like it's wonderfully done and everything like that. And eventually having it be that, Lumiere and Licht are able to work beside each other, and again having them fight alongside Asta and Yuno and everything, and having that kind of set up there for two sets of friends and everything, and eventually destroy the devil. And then, of course, stuff is revealed, things are explained. The elves weren't technically the ones at fault here, it was the greed from whispering in everybody's ears and people not having their full memories and vendettas and all this other stuff and corrupt royals and nobles from 500 years ago who are, their current descendants are not responsible for their crimes of not blaming the sins of the parent on the child type of a thing. Which is kind of a whole lesson inside of that in regards to like the elves needed to learn the fact that it was like, you can't blame the different people in the Clover Kingdom who are alive now for the crimes of their ancestors. That does not take away what their ancestors did by any means. Does not change what their ancestors did. But it just means that, don't punish the child for the parent's crime. If reparations can be made, that's a different story, but, that doesn't mean you need to go and slaughter an entire kingdom. Based on the actions of a very few nobles from 500 years ago. So eventually it ends up resulting in, of course, everyone is, all the elves are allowed to, pass on and everything. Certain ones get to stay around a little bit for insert whatever reasons of, I don't know, things happened and stuff. And kind of the end of what happens is, Lumiere is quite happy to see what the Magic Knights have become, and he gets, he sees Austin, and he's very proud of them and very proud of the other Magic Knights that he's interacted with and everything. And, him seeing Asta there fighting alongside other people, and even Yami and other ones who are not of noble and royal birth, or of high-ranking birth, seeing them amongst the other royal knights, against the other Magic Knights and everything is a very good, example of what he wanted to have happen, of people being able to achieve different, higher stations regardless of what their birthright. And so Lumiere kind of gets to see that. Eventually there is, after the battle is all finished and everything, it's time for, Lumiere, his power has run out, and he has, and he is, very, sadly saying goodbye to Secker. And, we have this great moment where you have that, Secker and Lumiere on top of the building, and I think Asta and possibly Yami are off to the side. I think at least Asta is off to the side. I don't remember who the other person is. And Lumiere says goodbye to her, and he just starts to break into pieces, and he eventually is just shattered. And he just crumbles away. Even, right in front of Secker, which just, he doesn't want to put her through that, but it's like he's out of power. He can't do anything else anymore, but he wants to spend his last moments with her. Side note, I actually do not know how popular of a pairing Secker and Lumiere are as a couple in regards to stuff, because beyond his sister, that's the only girl that we ever really see him interact with. So I'm quite certain there's probably a bit of shipping between the two of them, of shipping between them, or shipping of them, but I'm not sure exactly. But he is now gone. Admittedly, the Wizard King story still is going to be passed down through more generations as the story. Maybe parts of it will get rewritten now that the full history of what happened with the elves has been revealed. Parts of it might get rewritten, but given the corrupt nature of certain members of the Clover Kingdom, possibly not, because then that just, shines light on what their ancestors did to the elves 500 years ago. So probably not, but we'll see. That's pretty much where it ends for his story. As I said, he gets referenced every now and then. Throughout the course of the time, we do get to see him demonstrate various different types of magic. He has light magic as the main setup for what he uses. So most of his attacks are generated and manipulated amounts of light that he is able to use. He forms them into swords and arrows and so many different other things that he is able to use them for, to be able to protect people, fight, so many different things like that. He has immense magical power and speed and enhanced monosensory And, you know, he's an amazing craftsman with all of the different tools and everything and different inventions that he's made in his workshop. We know that a lot of those have been passed down. We also know that before everything had happened, Secker had managed to seal his laboratory away. And so that way, for a long time, his research just sat motionless eventually until Secker was able to unlock it. And that allowed Julius to be able to then get inside and get his hands on stuff and see what was going on there and see what could be, you know, continued on and passed down. As I stated, the main equipment we see him use is, of course, his grimoire, and his grimoire has a 4-leaf clover on it. 4-leaf clover. He has a 4-leaf clover, just as I said, Lick did. Patri, I believe, has one. Yuno, of course, has one. And such. In regards to his relationships, the only blood relation we are aware of is, of course, Tetia, who is his sister, and he adores her. He has this very, very close bond, and, you know, he just wants to take care of her and everything. I don't think we ever find out anything about their parents, as far as I'm aware. But, you know, he is perfectly happy with her being in a relationship with Licht, and is very supportive of that and everything. He, of course, is exceedingly probably brokenhearted when he finds out that his sister was, for all intents and purposes, killed because of Zagreed and everything. But her spirit was eventually able to pass on. In regards to Licht, who is his best friend, who is, of course, Lumiere's best friend and technically brother-in-law for all of about 10 minutes before, you know, all hell broke loose. They were brothers-in-law for about 10 minutes. And, of course, Lumiere did not want to kill Licht. He did not want to do that to his friend, but he knew that he had to in order to, A, not let his friend get possessed, B, it was his friend's request, and C, giant evil devil waiting in the wings to take over your friend. So, reasons. And eventually, you know, 5 centuries later is when they get to fight alongside each other again and take their revenge against, well, kind of revenge against Zagreed, but it's also like, okay, we're finishing what we started 500 years ago, and we're just going to take you out now. And Lumiere, of course, he does want to be able to be reunited with Licht and Tetia after everything is all said and done. But I don't know if we ever get an exact answer as to whether or not that has happened. In regards to his relationship with Secker Swallowtail, aka eventually would be Nero, you know, he is very fond of her from the very beginning. He, you know, wants to help her in regards to, like, he sees a use in her stealing magic, and he wants to help her see that she has far more to offer than what is on the surface, or than what she's been told her whole life. So he helps her with that. We see a lot of Wizard Kings, because Julius kind of does the same thing with a lot of the other, like with Yami and even with Conrad. We see Julius do something very similar with them. And it's like, you know, you may have one type of magic, but that doesn't mean you can't try to do a whole lot with what you're given. It's the same type of thing as, like, how do you work with the cards that you're dealt? And if you work well enough and if you work hard enough with what you have, you may be able to, you know, move beyond what people's expectations were of you. And that's what he helps with Secker in there. And he also, before he breaks apart, tells her that he wants her to live on with her new friends, with the Black Bulls and stuff. As I said, in regard to Zagreed, he despises Zagreed. He just wants to get rid of the annoying little demon, and eventually that does happen. In regards to Asta and Yuno and the Magic Knights, he meets them during the battle against Zagreed and everything, and he is very impressed by both of their abilities, and he compliments them and everything, and he's, you know, has faith in them and everything in regarding to be this newest generation, the next generation of the Magic Knights within the Clover Kingdom. And I think that kind of applies to, like, Noelle is also, Noelle included in that, along with a bunch of the other different, you know, the Black Bulls themselves, but a lot of the other younger members of the Royal Knights, or of the, why do I keep saying Royal Knights? Sorry. of the different, magic knights and everything. Because they're the ones that will lead the kingdom into the future. That's what they will do. And them being a mix of royals and nobles and commoners, and in the case of, a foreign frickin' deposed prince, technically qualifies as royalty, and who is half elf in his soul. I don't know how that's explained, but whatever. There's reasons. It's fine. But we do see that. That's kind of what Lumiere had been picturing all those years ago, or what he kind of, I guess, hoped eventually would happen. Again, whether or not the Magic Knights existed at the time, back when Lumiere was the Wizard King, or before he was given that title posthumously, is a little bit left up for debate. As I said, in regards to his family, he has Tetia as his sister, Licht as his brother-in-law, and then he does technically have two twin niflings or something like that, nibblings, something like that, half human, half elf, niece and nephew. We actually see them, I think, when Noelle and the others end up going to where, like, the elves are in the afterlife, or wherever the heck the elves are at that point in time. I think we see them there. In regards to, trivia, as I said, Lumiere is French for light, and that's what, his Viz translation name is, and his name in the English is. His favorite things are making his own styled clothes and things that are full of possibilities. So he would just find so much of the different magics of the different current members of the Magic Knights and just find them amazing. And according to one of the other things, it is that Lumiere and Sekker's relationship as statue and swallow is modeled after the characters in The Happy Prince. In the story, the bejeweled statue of a prince asks a swallow to remove the jewels and give them to his impoverished people. So I am not familiar with that story, but there's a lot of other, like, little childhood stories and stuff like that that are not as familiar to me, but that's one of them. But I find that very much is kind of like, it is a modified version of that. So actually, come to think of it, I don't know if this ever stated, or if it's like, because after Sekker would sealed him away for the first time, and he has all of the different jewels and everything that are a part of that. I don't know if if Sekker, like, purposely takes all the different jewels out and then hides them in different places around the kingdom, and then they're just eventually found by certain people, because we know one of them ends up with the Vermillion family, and that, Frigolion has it, and we know one of them ends up with, like, the Witch Queen, and we know one of them ends up in, like, the Seabed Temple, and one of them ends up in the village that Magna is from, and, like, they end up all over the place. But I don't remember if it's supposed to be that, like, Sekker took all of them and hid them in those different places, and then some of them were found, and she knew that they were at least in somewhat protected hands, or if they just ended up getting scattered on their own. I don't remember if that's ever specifically stated, as far as I remember. And again, if it is specifically stated and I just forgot, then I apologize. So that's the case there. So that's what I have here for Lumiere Silvamillion Clover. And the next one that would be in this specific series would be Princia Funny Bunny. I believe she is the next one that we actually know, the next Wizard King holder of that title that we at least know stuff about. And that would be her, and then Jester, and then Edward, or is it Edward then Jester? I don't remember. And then Conrad, and then Julius. But I'll double check through all of those, of course, as I'm making all of my notes for whichever ones come in whatever order. So that's what I have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye.